YouTube? This is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got another early rankings for the redraft. We've got the tight end position. Again, hopefully you guys have already checked out our quarterback, running back, and wide receivers as well to kind of get you just talking some fantasy football, right? It's early season. We've got free agency coming up, the combine happening. There were a lot of great things going on. Obviously, if you're into Dynasty, this won't really relate too much to you, maybe a little bit. But of course, if you guys are in Dynasty, we'll be talking a lot about rookies, a lot about who you should be trading after, who you should be selling, all that fun stuff. So those are coming out real soon within the next week or so. So I'm super excited. A lot of stuff to talk about, especially from the combine and then, of course, free agency. Now we're going to jump into this. Now, again, this is redraft. Redraft means this is all going to be chaotic, right? Except for number one, Travis Kelce. He is still the number one tight end, and you could possibly still put him at number one in Dynasty. Dynasty does change things with his age, but Travis Kelce has been fantastic. He finished number one with 318 fantasy points, and if you really put that in perspective, if he was a wide receiver, he still would have finished in the top 5 as a receiver. Like, that is how amazing Travis Kelce has been. And then, of course, if you were in a premium tight end type of league, Kelce absolutely dominated for you guys. And of course, if you had him, you probably saw it happening. Now, I'm not moving Kelce from number one. He is going to be that guy until he retires. And hopefully it's not too soon, but we'll see. Number 2, I have George Kittle. George Kittle started off really slow at the beginning of the season. Obviously, you had Trey Lance, then he went down. Then you had Jimmy G, and then he went down. And once Purdy took over at the quarterback position, especially after those injuries, Kittle's value went up. Him and Kittle just had a great connection. And Kittle actually ended up finishing third with 200 points going into the season. And realistically, in this season upcoming, if Purdy does stay healthy, obviously he had his surgery recently, and on top of that, does win the QB situation, which is a very high chance, we're not really sure. I love this value for Kittle. I still think he's going to be number 2 going into the season. And I just love what he was able to do. I love the connection between him and him. And realistically, if you look at that receiving core, Ayuk, who really stood out and did a really good job. Debo was kind of finding his way with obviously Christian McCaffrey coming in there. That offense is still very powerful. I like George Kittle. Number 3, I've got Mark Andrews. Now, Andrews, unfortunately, really only finished as good as Lamar was there, right? Like, if Lamar was there, Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end. With Andrews obviously having the fact that Lamar missed time, he still finished 4th. Now, there were a couple really big games for him, but there were a lot of times Mark Andrews disappeared and didn't show up at all. And there were a lot of you guys that had felt that pain of him really suffering and just being awful, right? Lack of wide receiver help wasn't there as well. You didn't have Bateman. Duvernay was there back and forth. There wasn't a lot of great receiving, and then you got really a running game that was probably the focal point because they didn't really believe in Huntley really at all. So if Lamar does stay with the Ravens, which obviously we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll update you guys if anything changes, I still have Mark Andrews finishing at number 3. I like what that's going to happen. And honestly, Baltimore is going to add some weapons. They've got to. At this point, you've got to do something to keep Lamar. You can't just sign him to a big contract. You've got to be able to promise him that they're going to add weapons to help him be successful and obviously move this team forward. Number 4, I've got TJ Hawkinson, who did finish obviously really strong last year. He finished number 2 with 217 fantasy points. And big thing is, Hawkinson, I was somebody I was really excited for, even with the Detroit Lions. I love what that offense was capable of going to be. And then he gets traded to the Vikings. And at first I was like, maybe. But this passing offense is actually really good. A lot of it obviously is the focal point for Jay Jetta. But I love what Hawkinson was able to do. Now, he had some really crazy games where he just blew it up. And there were some games he was average, right? And obviously those games that he really blew it up really helped him finish really strong. But I still like what he's going to be able to do for this offense. I like Kirk Cousins. I like this passing offense. And I like that he's got Justin Jefferson on the outside to help him out. So I like TJ Hawkinson still at number 4. Number 5, I've got Evan Ingram. Now, Evan Ingram was my sleeper last year, and he absolutely delivered. I love what he was able to do, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that you had Doug Peterson as your head coach, and a coach that's focal point is the tight end, right? Think of a la Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert when he was for Philadelphia Eagles. So he finished 5th. I like him still at this spot. He's the perfect fit for the Jaguars. I love what he does in this Doug Peterson offense. And you've got weapons like Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and now Calvin Ridley coming back. This offense is potent. Now, some of you may be a little hesitant because you do have all those weapons. And that can be a concern because obviously you can only spread the football so much. But I still like Evan Ingram. I love what he's going to be able to do for this offense. I still have him at number 5. Number 6, I got Pat Freiermuth. Now, Muth is one of my favorite tight ends in this league right now. He is just fantastic. And he's one of my top 3 absolutely when it comes to dynasty. I love his age. Obviously, I love what he's been able to do for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As for redraft, I don't have him quite as high. Part of it's just obviously, again, the quarterback situation. Kenny Pickett is going to his second year, and I still think that's going to actually help Freiermuth. You got George Pickens, you got Deontay Johnson. There's still a really pretty good offense, right? Hopefully Najee Harris shows up a little bit better, but here's the thing. Between tight end 6 to tight end 10, they all were within a few points of each other. Like Freiermuth could have been number 10, just based off a few points less. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, it's really that close when it comes to the tight end position. But I still like Freiermuth just a little bit more with the other guys that I'm going to mention here, just because I think this offense does use him really well. He's a very, very good blocker, so it helps with the running game. And I like the weapons they have on the outside, and I think him and Pickett have developed a pretty good relationship. Now, Kyle Pitts is number 7. Pitts was absolutely the worst tight end when it came to where you expected him, right? Like you probably picked him in the 3rd or 4th round. Some of you may have done the 2nd. Obviously, in Dynasty, this is a little different, but the problem is Pitts has elite talent. He's got a unique skill set, which is one of the things I worry about with Darnell Washington. We'll talk about that as far as the rookie. But unfortunately, this offense was not it. Him with Mariota, Marcus Mariota was not the answer for the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, with him being gone, that kind of explains that. Now, we'll see how things go with Desmond Ridder. I like Desmond Ridder a lot. He shows, for me, signs of what Dak Prescott can do. I think he's more of a lower grade than Dak, but I like what he can do. So I'm curious to see how that is. You still got Drake London on the outside as well, so I think that still helps Pitts. Pitts obviously got hurt last season, which didn't obviously add, it just really added to the fire. But I was really tempted to just kind of pulling him out completely, but his talent is just so good that I can't leave Kyle Pitts out of this list. But it was close. I was really close to pulling him out just because I want to see a little bit more. We'll see, obviously, when we get closer to the actual season. But I still have Kyle Pitts at number 7. Number 8, I got Cole Kmet. Kmet really turned it up last year. He did a really good job. He had a great connection with Justin Fields. And again, a lot of it, actually, with Darnell Mooney being out, there wasn't a lot of weapons for Fields besides his own legs. But I liked Kmet. He was a good red zone threat. And I truly believe the Bears are going to absolutely add some weapons to Fields. Like, they've got to, right? You've got to be able to please him. You got to be able to help develop him. You've got to give him some weapons besides Kmet. Obviously, a Mooney coming back. But Mooney's not a true number 1. I like what he can do, and I love Darnell Mooney, but he's not a true number 1. So I would add, if they add some more talent, I definitely like Cole Kmet here at number 8. Number 9, Daniel Bellinger. Like, Bellinger is my dark horse going into this season. He did not finish near the top 10. I don't even think he finished in the top 15. I think he was more closer to the 25-30 range. But I will say this. Bellinger, prior to what I saw in the combine for some of these tight ends, and this is a really good tight end class, I have him at number 9. He may end up falling further when we come after the draft and we get closer to, OTAs and all that fun stuff. But I still like what Bellinger was able to do for Big Blue. And he had a really good connection with Daniel Jones. He obviously had some injuries. He wasn't very consistent, but he showed a lot of flashes, which is what I loved about what he could do. He was a good blocker. He was able to get open. He read the defenses really well. Good hands, good red zone threat. And I do expect him to grow, and I do expect, obviously, some weapons out. You got Wan'Dale Robinson coming back for Big Blue. So again, I like Bellinger as really a dark horse for me. Darren Waller is my number 10 tight end, and at this point, the injury concern that I have for him, I almost pulled him out, and I'll talk about why I still have him in there. But his injuries have definitely really hindered him the last couple of years. Moreau really wasn't the answer for the Las Vegas Raiders, so that's a little tough one. Now, I still have Waller as a top 10 tight end just because realistically, his talent's really good. He can read defenses really well. You've got Devontae Adams out there. You got Hunter Renfrow, who's back from injury. You got Josh Jacobs coming back. The quarterback situation does scare me, right? Well, we're curious how the Raiders are going to go about this. They obviously didn't think Derek Carr was the answer. I think he was more of a scapegoat, per se. But until that QB situation kind of gets figured out, Waller still has me right on the fringe where I possibly could pull him off this list. If he does stay healthy, I still think he's a top 5 tight end. I think he's got the talent for that. We'll see how the QB situation goes for Las Vegas. We'll see if they trade up. Maybe they get an Aaron Rodgers. Who knows? But with that said, I still have him number 10. Now, some honorable mentions. I've got Dalton Schultz, obviously, with Schultz. If he were to stay with Dallas, I would keep him, probably jump him into the top 10. He had some really, he was finished 10th last season, and he's got a good rapport with, obviously, Dak Prescott. I actually honestly think Dalton Schultz gets released. Well, just let go. He's not going to obviously be tagged or signed. I don't think Dallas is going to spend the money on him. They really love Jason Ferguson. So that it kind of worries me, and we'll see where he goes. Dallas Goedert's another guy. I like what he can do. That offense is just a little tricky when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't have him quite in the top 10, but he's definitely an honorable mention. David Njoku is another guy I have to mention because I like what he was able to do. He does get hurt a lot, unfortunately. I do see an opportunity for them to grow for the Cleveland Browns, especially with Deshaun Watson having a full off season to really kind of dive into this playbook, really have some good connections with the receivers and tight ends. So Njoku is definitely another one. So those are my early redraft rankings for the tight end position. If you guys think of some other tight ends you would mention, or maybe you guys would put another list together and say this list is crap, again, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Check out our other videos because we're going to be also dropping a lot of Dynasty content. There's so much going on, especially for the rookies. So we'll be dropping that later this week. So make sure you guys are stay tuned. And of course, a lot going on in the rest of this month. We'll be talking free agency. And then, of course, when the draft happens, there's a lot going on. Again, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button. I'll check you guys out next time.